Alex, it's your turn to confess today. What would you like to confess?
I have a confession. Okay.
Tell me everything.
Well, I still don't think I made a mistake, but I've been fooled. I've been played a fool.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I sent out my laundry because I don't like doing laundry. Also, by the way, I polled my followers on social media to ask them if they too send out their laundry because my Gen Z friend thinks it's stupid, or Gen X.
Gen X.
Yeah. And a majority of people agreed with me. So I think it's just you.
Were they millennials?
No, they were not. I think it's a coastal thing too. People on the East Coast, in New York, a lot of them.
Well, understand that New York people, this is a whole different world. New York people don't have washers and dryers anywhere near them. They have to go really far to a laundromat.
Me too.
Not really. We have all seen your washer in your house.
I know, but you can't wash all the stuff and then it comes out crunchy. Anyways, That's not the story. That's not the confession. Somebody stole my laundry for 3 days, y'all. For 3 days. All my property was in the hands of some stranger named Angela. And customer service,
it was amazing. Service. The customer service was incredible. We can have an entire episode on just the customer care that was not there.
No, they literally did not care that every article of clothing in my closet was kidnapped. God knows where. I don't even know this person's last name because of this bullshit app. And then when it finally arrived 3 days later, and actually this person kept ignoring me every time. I was like, hi, do you have a date that you're going to be coming? Do you know what time you're going to be coming? She said she was coming at certain times and then blew those times off multiple times, just didn't show up, didn't text me. Oh, I lost my phone. Literally every excuse in the book. And then you wrote me an email because I was like, I really just want to say, you fuck off. Bring me my fucking laundry, you dumb bitch. And you had me write a much nicer one, really pleading my case. And I know you're busy, but I need these for work. And if you could please just let me know, I'll be available. And then it showed up. She just literally chucked it on my stairs, not even in front of my door. It was just out on the sidewalk. And then an item was missing. And of course the item was missing was a nostalgic laundry bag, which I know sounds stupid, but okay, it wasn't mine, it was Anthony's. And he was like, my laundry bag. And I was like, your laundry bag? My laundry has been kidnapped for 3 days. And then they did return that, also just, chucked on the stairwell. So my confession is, I don't even know. My laundry was stolen for 3 days and I didn't think I really cared, but my God, that was stressful, but all is well. It is returned. And I will send my laundry out again. Obviously not with this company, but I'm still not doing my laundry. So yeah.
There you go. Well, these are choices. Everyone's making their choices. I do have a question for you about the laundry. How did you feel the caliber of the cleanliness of the laundry was?
It was questionable because, okay, so I'm gonna just out myself. I'm a very fragrant person. All right. I work hard. I play hard. I smell. Okay. And so nothing smelled, but it didn't smell fresh. And so I was just is this clean? I don't know. I don't know.
You just washed it in water and not soap at all.
Yeah, but I've washed my stuff in water and no soap at all, and it still smells. So I don't know. I don't trust anything that Angela touched. Okay, that's really the world.
I do believe that. The fun story of this was it was so much joy. There was so much joy to be had, not for Alex, but for me.
No, day 4. Guess what? Still don't have my fucking laundry.
Day 4 laundry watch.
Literally, I was obsessively opening my front door, nope, it's not there. Nope, it's not there.
Yeah.
That didn't make me go any faster, but
no, apparently watched laundry still doesn't appear.
No, it's just like a watched pot doesn't boil. Neither does watched laundry show up.
No, but good time was had by all. I think in general, you're speaking to a group of people who, and I told you this myself when we talked about laundry, we do laundry constantly. Our livelihood is laundry. We touch people's faces, we take off hair, and we deal in laundry. So running a spa or your own solo practice day to day, you do average of 2 to 3 loads a day.
Right, but you have proper equipment to do so.
Not everybody does. I mean,
then how are you doing it?
Well, I mean, as everyone knows, I felt very proud of myself for sneaking a washer into my apartment, hooking it up to my sink and having it drain into my tub for years and years and years.
What did you do before that?
Went to the laundromat.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Laundromats suck. Nobody wants them.
No. Well, I want them because at least my clothing isn't going to leave the property, so I know where to track it down when it gets lost next time.
At least you have eyes on it. You're like, I've got eyes on my own stuff.
Listen, I know where you are. Okay. I just, I mean, we have to. I made notes on it. We're gonna do another episode about doing stuff you don't want to do because
Yes, we totally are.
I have,
This is gonna be
I
good.
have thoughts.
I'm excited to hear about these thoughts. Okay, but today we're gonna get started with something else. So let's get this party started. Hi, I'm Sybil Solon. I'm an esthetician and spa owner.
And hi, I'm Alex Ellis. I'm a body nerd and wellness expert, and we are business besties.
And bosses, running your own business, it's hard.
But we're terrible employees, so we're figuring it out.
I've already figured it all out. But we promise to share everything we know about what it takes to make six figures and beyond.
And be brutally honest about what works and what totally sucks.
A bunch of it totally sucks. So let's get started.
Welcome back to Skinfessional. On today's show, we're talking about podcasting because clearly we know something about it. And we get asked all the time about starting your own podcast. So today we're going to share everything we've learned in the last 342 episodes with the 5 shows that we have done between the both of us.
And the 3 lessons we've each learned to help you get your new show off the ground successfully.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you're listening to a podcast right now, so you like podcasts. What I love about podcasts is like from a listener's point of view, you get really like the conversations aren't as like edited or formal as like watching 60 Minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And often that, is like only high profile people. Like I want to hear from someone who's really cool and really smart and really knowledgeable that I didn't know that they existed before, right? Maybe you want to hear a story or you want to learn. Like it doesn't need to be this like overly produced thing, and yet it also feels so intimate because I'm listening to podcasts while I'm making my breakfast, while I'm rolling on my therapy balls, walking my dog, washing my car, like all of those times. Like I'm not watching television. Like I honestly consume more podcasts than I do television and screen time of like all sorts.
Even more than TikTok?
Yeah, because I have a limit on my TikTok,
Okay,
no
well,
more
there
than
you go.
9 minutes a day across all social media platforms, and I don't usually max that out.
Is amazing. I mean, I'm very specific about the podcasts I listen to, and I probably don't listen to as many as, I mean, some people are like they have a huge list of podcasts, and I'm down to, I listen to 1 daily and 3 weekly. And that's primarily my podcasting. But if you think about that, that's still a lot of content. And there's a lot of information. And then I still have like ones that sneak in. Like Alex will send me one and I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. Or I'll have a client who sends me something and I'm like, oh, I love that one. And sometimes for entertainment, if I know I'm taking a long road trip, I'll just go find some random ones to try something new.
Yeah, like a long story. I love those.
Just like, I love the series ones where it's not like it's not like a continuing podcast, but it's just kind of like they have like 10 episodes and then we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even though actually, I don't know when Serial first came out, which kind of like blew up the podcast scene. And people like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan have been podcasting for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And even so, like, I don't think it's too late to start your own podcast. I think I look all the time, doing some research to try to find some shows to reach out to for myself. And I'm like, oh, this show is inactive. So even when people are like, there's this many millions of shows, probably like more than 50% of them are no longer a thing, Well,
I think the original statistic when we started and I did some research on podcasting was that most people do like 4 episodes. That's it. And everybody else, there's another cutoff at about 6 months where people do it for like 6 months. And then they're like, it's really hard because doing something continuously like this is hard. You have to think of ideas. You have to sit down with somebody and do it, or you have to sit down with yourself. You have to think about new things to talk about. You sometimes have to do it in the face of it being super quiet and nobody paying any attention to you and caring about what you say. You're just kind of speaking into the void and hoping that somebody's listening.
That is so true. I also, I'm thinking about the last year that I had personally, and even through all of that, the podcast was the one thing I continued to do, even though I wasn't posting on social media. And for me, it's just like because it brought so much joy, right? Our
Yeah.
podcast where we get to hang out, like I love that. And even my own podcast where I get to just, we'll talk about this too, but like I set it up in a way that had more flexibility. So my listeners don't expect episodes more than 20 minutes long. And that's fine.
Yeah.
So if I show up and I give them 11 minutes, they're like, oh, sweet. That was such a quick bite. And that's cool. And that's enough. So I think that's like, from the people who do the 4 episodes to the people who do 6 months of episodes, I think the most important thing is to really think about before you even start, how do you want to show up and how does that actually fit into your life?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to take a week off? Okay. So then maybe you shouldn't do 3 episodes a week, that's going to be a lot to handle. But yeah, just like having that pre-planning before you go into it.
I do find with the podcasting, consistency is really important. So I've had some life changes, and I know that for me, like I was very, very consistent, making sure that the podcast was up every week, didn't matter, whatever. And then I had some life stuff that recently happened, and I was like, you know what? If I miss a week here and there, it's not the end of days. It's not, it's going to be fine. But it is one of the most important things to me. Like, I'm like, you know what? It's Thursday night. I better make sure the podcast goes up. Because I feel like I'm talking, even if it's only like 100 fans. And sometimes I think about that sometimes, like maybe because we've talked about this on other episodes, you think about the fans that you have. Most times, even a podcast, you know that you have 100 fans that are hardcore fans, that are your super fans. And those are the people that I put it up for.
Yeah. I mean, even like something I remind myself all the time, I'm like, oh, only 500 or only 100. I'm like, if I was standing in front of 100 people, like my knees would be shaking.
Right. I'd be like, this is amazing. Those people want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah. And also like another idea for if you're like, ooh, I want to do like a sprint where I'm doing a lot of work to get the show, and then I want to just sit back and coast and not do anything, maybe a format where you're doing seasons. So you only do like, 8 to 10 episodes, and then you take 3 months off and come back when you want. Like that works too.
Totally.
I mentioned Serial at the beginning with Sarah Koenig, I think her name is.
Yeah.
I'm still subscribed, and once every 2 years, they'll put out a thing. And this time they didn't even put it on their feed. I had to go find it. And yet, as a super fan, I'll do whatever I can to go find it because I know I like their stories, I like their quality, and like I'm going to show up,
Absolutely. Absolutely. My very, very favorite podcast that I listen to is a Hollywood media one. And it went off the air for a little while during COVID because they do live episodes. So everybody they have a studio audience, and guess what they didn't have during COVID? They didn't have a studio audience. No studio audience. And so they're just getting back to it. And I get so excited when I see it appear on my feed. I'm like, yeah, they're back. I'm so excited.
Yeah, those subscriptions, man, they keep showing up no matter what.
Yeah. So
and it
is important.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm like, it is important to just to recognize like that you have fans, you are also a fan, and to treat people the same way that you would treat yourself.
Absolutely. And I want to add too that podcasts also have great staying power. Like, you find a show you like, you're going to go back and, scroll through their episodes and listen to some other ones. I've put out specific coupon codes in different episodes over the years. And so like, I still like maybe once a month get someone listening to episode 6 and like using that coupon code from that. So when social media is so like ephemeral and it just is like, oh, it's like 6 hours or 24 hours and then it's dead. Podcasting has more life to it. So if you want to start something that is going to like really have staying power, a podcast is definitely, I would say, my vote.
I agree. And when you're picking out what you want your podcast to be about. So people are like, I want to do a podcast, right? And so Alex, when you chose to do your podcast, why did you choose to do it?
Because my friends were doing it and they were having great success, and I wanted that success too.
Right? Ready?
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. You don't have to have, this is what I'm saying. Like, I knew that was the reason. Like, you don't have to have, per se, this higher purpose. No. I wanted to do a podcast because I wanted to talk to business owners about things that I had knowledge about, that I knew my friend Alex had knowledge about, that together I felt that we could share information with people. And also I wanted to have a chance to sit down with my friend who's already good at podcasting and podcast.
And this show has been so helpful for me to like have an outlet because I have, together we have learned business stuff. I've learned through experience business stuff. And then I felt like, man, I just spent all this time and effort learning this thing that I'm not talking about. I'm not
Right.
sharing. I don't get like an outlet to like process things. And so, yeah, that's like when you're like, let's do this. I was like, hell yeah. Let's
Right.
create a space for people to learn about how to run their business in a way that is easier and more like authentic to who they are.
Correct. So when you're thinking about doing a podcast, a lot of times, like I'm talking out to all these estheticians out there or salon people, or maybe you're a private practice person. However you found us, you're listening to this and you're like, well, I mean, I have to promote my business, right? Maybe,
Not
or maybe you just
necessarily.
talk about whatever you want to talk about. And what will happen is sometimes is because you are you, the rest of it will sneak in and be there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just do it for pleasure. What?
There's nothing wrong with that.
What? You can
Yeah.
just do it for pleasure as well.
I mean, like one of my favorite shows has also been around. I think they're on their 6th year of podcasting. It's called My Favorite Murder. And they started because it was just two women. They met at a party and they like true crimes. They were like, I guess like maybe we should start a podcast. And they did. And it turned into like this huge, huge show and business. And like they just got bought out. Like it's freaking cool. That's not the trajectory for everybody.
For
But I
most
think
people.
yeah. When you start from a place, like it has to be fun for the
Yeah.
stuff we've already talked about. When it gets hard, when you're tired, when you don't want to do it, if it's not something that you're excited about, that you can talk about, that you go on and on and on about, like having a podcast isn't going to make that any different.
No, if you can't nerd out about it for like hours on end and not get tired of nerding out about it, it's probably not what you want to be podcasting about.
Yeah.
Right?
So true. It's
Because
so true.
4 years in, you're going to be like, oh, when we call each other, I'm like, so what are we talking about today, Alex? You'd be like, I don't know. F all of this. Who cares?
Yeah, you don't want to get there.
No, you don't want to be there. Have you ever gotten tired about talking about body stuff for the Body Nerd
No,
Show?
actually, I was just thinking about that because there's also so many different angles, like
Mm-hmm.
knee pain. I've talked about knee pain before, but like let's talk about knee pain and squatting and let's talk about knee pain and arthritis. Like there's so many different
Yeah,
angles to talk about the same thing. And then also, I mean, here's another like, what should I talk about? What do people ask you about most
that's right.
often? And so I
Answer
take the
questions.
questions that I get from social media and then I just answer them
That's
on
right.
my
That is
podcast.
correct. That is correct.
It's
So
like
let's
never
get
in the
into the
loop.
nitty gritty about like how to actually do it. Because like now we've talked about like, hey, doing a podcast, of course you want to do it. It's going to be fun. You're going to have a great time. And then people are like, ooh, but how do I do it? It's really scary. It seems hard. There seems to be like a lot of equipment and crap.
Well, I just want to stand up on my soapbox and say you do not need a blue Yeti. And if you're like, Alex, I don't even know what you're talking about. So sound is important. I know
Yes.
this is one of like your must-haves, Sybil,
Mm.
because I mean, for me personally, if a show sounds crappy, like I turn it off. There's Sybil's her
There's my
microphone.
mic. If you're watching YouTube, you can see my mic, which by the way, Alex and I
Yeah,
have the exact
the
same
same.
one.
Yes. So we both have what's called the Blue Snowball. It's the same company. The company's called Blue. They also make the Yeti. But the Snowball is like half the price of the Yeti. And I like when I first started podcasting, oh my gosh, maybe it was like in 2013, maybe like forever ago. I was broke. And so this was a big expenditure. But I still use this microphone even to this day. And my producer was like, what microphone are you using? And I'm like, not an expensive one because it's not just the microphone. It's also the room you're in. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Sybil?
Yeah, so it is room. I also wanted to piggyback onto that microphone. If you listen to
Mhm.
our very first few episodes, go back into the archives, people. We were in my spa and we actually worked off of one microphone together. That's how good the
Yeah.
sound is on this thing.
Yeah.
We just used one microphone because it was too hard to get two set up. So
Yeah.
that's how good it is.
That's
That's how
another
good
good
the
lesson
directional
too.
sound is.
Just make it work.
Right, it'll be fine. So the space that you're in, I think, is some of the most important stuff you do. So if you actually are watching the video here, you'll see that I have tiles on my wall. And the reason why they're there is because I was getting a lot of bounce echo. Yeah.
I got some foam too.
Yeah, because I was getting a lot of bounce echo. And my sound person, when I used to have a sound person, was like, you were getting a lot of echo. And I was like, oh, it's this wall. Okay. And if you can't see behind me, but I actually have, I have like a drape that I stick up here to kind of help the noise not bounce back so much. I have my door stays closed and I have a bumper on the bottom of my door that keeps the sound out so my cats don't make a bunch of sound if I can help it. And I do try to pick days where it's not going to be like garbage pickup day or like Saturday where the kids are going to be out riding because I'm right on the street. And so you would hear everything.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes like life happens.
Yeah.
So there's a number of episodes of the Potty Nerd Show where you can hear Ella like sneezing or coming in and doing her shake or like a garbage truck outside. So it's like, is it something I can pause for? Yes or no? I know we've
had the same thing.
Construction, remember?
Yes. So, but it's like, so these things happen. Don't stop doing it because of it, but try to like when you're planning out your podcast schedule, maybe be like, maybe Sunday morning at 10 is not the best time to do it because, hey, that is when the garbage picks up every single day. Maybe that's not
don't do it when the gardeners are there.
Also, you and I, for a while, we were trying not to record because of our internet connection was so bad. We kept losing internet connection. We were trying to record at quieter internet times.
Yes.
Ugh. Yeah.
Well, I got an Ethernet cable, you guys. It's so long. It's so good. It works great. So I actually
the things we thought about.
These like I have these foam corner things. I'm also on carpet. That helps. You can also like throw a towel down on your desktop or just leave your desktop covered in books. I find that has also helped dampen the noise.
Oh yeah. I have paper all over my desk for sure.
Yeah. Hard surfaces are not your friend. I bought my foam thingies on Amazon because this kid at my church was studying sound engineering. And so I was like, oh, hello. Hey, can you tell me like, what do I need to make a quiet place? And he was like, it's the corners. And I was like, okay, great. Cause I noticed too, you have all of those bottles on that shelf.
Yeah. On my corners.
Like, I got a foam piece in this corner here. I got a foam piece in that corner there. I got a chair over there. And that has helped a lot. Like it sounds fine. So it's like things to think about and yet also don't overthink it.
Right. And it is the more things that you actually have like insulating your walls is better. So my spa space was actually perfect because I had fabric on every single wall.
It was so dampened.
It dampened everything. It was just, and every corner had bottles and stuff on it. It was just really quiet in there all the time. But don't freak out. So if like people are like, well, you have to do it in your closet because it is the quietest. I mean, you can, but you don't have to.
No. I know when people are like, oh, I'm in my closet. I'm like, why?
Well, because it is a nice sound dampener. You've got all that. It's quiet. It's small. You've got all those clothes.
I'm not NPR, so there's that.
But so when you're thinking about the sound, you're just trying to keep the sound as nice as possible because people are listening and people there's been all this research done there. People are willing to tolerate like weird visual stuff, but they have their sound over time. The noise in your ears will just become annoying. So if there's like a lot of white noise, if there's too much bounce, if it's too much echo, people will be like, nope, I can't. And they'll bounce out of there. Bye.
Yeah. So definitely. And there's also so many YouTube videos that you can watch about how to set up your space for sound. And
but they get really intense. So once again, we just told you how not intense ours is. So when the people are like setting up the intense stuff, don't stress it. This is not where you start. Don't worry about it. Remember, you could fail and not want to continue this in three episodes.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Right?
Don't do that. So let's also talk about like partners or not partners. So I've had a show with a partner that I stopped, and I now run a show solo, and then we do this show together. So I've done it all. What are your thoughts too on partners and how that works?
Well, I think that if you're going to do a partner, you want to make sure you're with a partner who respects you, cares about you, and is an equal partner, or at least you know what your responsibilities are for that show and you're very upfront about it. I know that with your show, you felt that it was maybe not an equal. There was not equalness.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm.
And Alex and I worked very hard actually at the beginning to make sure that she was an equal on the show and that I actually did most of the tech because she had been through with that.
Oh my God.
She was through with that.
It is so much.
She'd already done that. But also I find that partners make a show that more dynamic. It's much more interesting. It also makes you want to come do the show. It's exciting to sit down and be like, I'm going to talk to my friend. I'm going to talk to my partner. We're having a discussion about something instead of me just talking at an empty space.
Yeah, it's the accountability that's super helpful. But like when I started the Body Nerd show, I intentionally set it up as a solo show because I didn't want the hassle of having to schedule with somebody else or the restrictions of that. And so doing it by myself allowed me to be way more flexible. Like, let me record 3 episodes this week and then none the next couple of weeks, or let me do an interview because I feel like it, not because I have to. So that was an intentional design, and then also allowed me to be more particular about the types of guests I bring on the show, because if I don't need to have a guest. Right. It's nice, but I don't need, but I also didn't want to say like no guests ever, because having a guest is super great. So again, like, here's a through line of everything we've been talking about. Do what works for you that you can get excited about and do week after week after week. If that's solo shows, if that's 10-minute shows, if that's an hour-long show with a friend, whatever, just do what can keep you like excited about it.
Absolutely. And I will tell, so I do another podcast, and I do it because a friend asked me to do it, and it literally makes me want to die most times.
No.
It's a scripted podcast. And
I didn't realize
it's a scripted podcast. And Alex, do we script anything?
No, we write bullet points that we attempt to stick to.
Yeah. And do we even actually plan anything out before we sit down and record? No, because I'm not a planner like that.
5 minutes and then we hit record.
That's right. I'm like more dynamic with podcasting. So when people are doing their stuff, so Alex was talking about with the Body Nerd, so that she actually does do like a lot of pre-planning for hers. She has somebody she talks to, she preps it. Prep for the show is not like, prep for the show is not the same. And for me, I wanted something where I could just kind of come in, sit down, talk about stuff, be done. And I knew that if I passed this off to Alex, it'd be fine because she's completely capable of doing that.
Yeah, no, and I like the flexibility. I think for me, it's really that variety, right? So I have a structure for my show because like I want to know what we're talking about. I want to keep the like, I don't want to like do stuff back to back. We don't do that here because like you're totally paying attention to that. But I also, like, slotting stuff in. Currently, I'm looking at going on a road trip at the end or like early June. So I want to make sure that everything's recorded before I even leave. So it's like good to go. So I'm like planning for that. And for me, that planning brings me comfort and joy. If that's not your cup of tea, like you don't have to do that. Like you're also hearing there's so many different ways just between the two of us on how we do shows. Like there's no one right way. The best way is just the way that you keep doing.
Right. But the other one that I do, she scripts it out. And the reason why is because she wants to make sure that like certain things are talked about and that we literally read it back to back. And like, there's very little room for, and if you try to kind of go outside the bounds and have interesting, like start having a dialogue, she'll be like, no, this is not the place for that. We'll talk about that later.
Scripted. I mean, that's another style.
You're like, okay. So know what you want and know how you want it done. And once again, her podcast is her podcast. It's well loved by the people who listen to it, and no one else would know the background that I'm dying inside.
Oh, you're so funny. Well, here's another, I thought I just want to make sure we touch upon, because you did mention that I have somebody I work with on the podcast. I also mentioned my producer.
Yes.
And I definitely am a fan of hiring help if and when you can.
Yeah.
I used Upwork.com to find my producer, and he started at about, I think like episode 30 or something like that. But he does everything for me. So I record, I send it to him, I do all the writing currently. And then he publishes it, edits it, does all that. So I know it's taken care of. And for me, that was a little bit of the accountability I needed for my solo show, because I was like, if I don't have somebody else ask me like, where's this episode? I might not do it. So that was like really, really helpful. So Tim's been around forever and he's the bomb. And this is also, we've talked about like hiring people and like, streamlining processes and stuff. Every week I was just like, oh, I got to write the show notes. And then I would sit down, and it takes time. It would take like 2 hours. Show notes take
forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, research and write. And then I'm writing the email that's going to go out and like the social media posts and stuff like that. And so I just hired at the beginning of this year, a friend to write with and for me. So we have similar backgrounds in movement and philosophy. So that's helpful. She knows kind of like where I'm coming from, where my brain is coming from. And she's able to give me the first draft that I can then go in and tweak and record. But she's like, having the other perspective, which we talked about, like having a co-host or doing it with a friend.
Right.
Like I've learned stuff about, it just was like breathing. It was like, yeah, breathing through your nose increases your nitrous oxide increase. I think it was like carbon dioxide or something. I was like, oh my God, I like literally didn't know this. This is so cool. So I learned from her and like, I really enjoy that. And then also I know that I can sit down at my computer. It's going to take me 30 minutes to do those quick edits. And then I can record and then I can continue to do other things in my business, which are still making me money,
Right.
So things to think about. You definitely don't need to do that. I know we don't do that for Skinfessional. We did, and we don't now. But with editing too, you've had a nice
Yeah.
a nice learning curve with that.
Yeah. So editing, I farmed out my editing for Skinfessional for forever because I just didn't have time. And I didn't want to do it. And then life happens and financial stuff happens. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to start doing this. And so I actually do this all on my phone. So I pull it all.
I don't know how you do this.
I do it all on my phone. I pull everything into InShot. So it does help so we use something called Zencaster to do the recording. And it does help that Zencaster started doing post-production. So it started doing the sound post-production and the video post-production. It made this process for us much easier because Skinfessional, unlike the Body Nerd Show, we do a YouTube as well as, we do a video as well as. So what happens with this one is we get on and I'm like, hey, let's just chat. Let's figure out what we're doing. We talk about what we're doing. We finish, I push post-production. It goes into a folder. I then pull that down to my phone, do the editing on my phone, and I do it in InShot because that's my favorite thing to edit with. And InShot has no memory of anything. So it's not like I can be like, oh, and I just stick these back in and all the stuff that I use every time is still there.
It brings me so much anxiety just hearing about it.
So I was like, I'm going to talk to this and Alex is going to freak out. So I do the same thing. I do the same tasks, menial task over and over again. And I just do it because that's how it is. I just throw it in. I throw in the music in the same spot and I put the stuff in the same spot and I just all throw the text in at the same places every time. And I just do it every time as if I'm cooking and just throw it all together. The template, there's no like template you can use. I wish there was, but I cannot in InShot. And then from there, I save it. I use a converter that pulls out the audio from that video. And then that audio is what goes up.
It's just giving me anxiety hearing this process
podcast.
So there's
kind of it's a backwards way to do it. Like most people would never do it like that, but it's the way that I understood how to do it. It was simple for me.
Yeah.
And I'm able to get it done. Which
again, the thing that you can keep doing consistently is the most important thing. I'm so glad you don't tell me about this.
Yes, I know. Cause I literally, as I was saying this, like I had this weird smile on my face. I'm like, Alex is going to die. She's going to be like, what?
Where's your SOP for this? Why is there no process?
This is the process. It's just a really long process. So
yes,
and there are definitely places I wish I could streamline it, but I do it on my phone and this is the best place I can do it. I've looked at other software and I have to learn it and I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
So everybody's got their thing. I can do this while I sit and watch a TV show.
I don't understand.
And this is why Alex and I work so well together because our neuroses mesh.
It's so true. It's so true. But I think at this point too, like my hope is that you're feeling like, oh, there's many different ways that I could, if I truly want to do a podcast, if I have stuff I want to talk about, if I have people I want to talk to, because that's the other thing. It really, like, you can talk to anyone you want. You can make the ask because you have a platform for them. Like I never in a million years would have dreamed of some of the people we interviewed on previous shows, or even like still the phrase that pays, like totally worth it. So
I know.
if that gets you excited, know that there's a million ways to do it. Pick one that works best for you. Don't spend a lot of money on doing this
No.
because you don't have to. You just need it to sound good. So don't do it on your AirPods. Do get a microphone. But beyond that, it can just be what you want it to be. And it can be as niche as you want. You know, if you only want to talk to beauty professionals about business, if you only want to talk to women in Muay Thai, or if you just want to talk to like people who work out, it doesn't matter. It's just what you're excited and passionate about. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And then to put out the podcast. So that's something we want to make sure we hit on to put out the podcast. So I use something called podcast.co, and essentially I just upload it to there, and then they disperse it out to all the like networks that are there. They disperse it out to you. What do you do, Alex?
I have mine hosted on Libsyn, which is like the OG. It's like a
that's
very
what everybody
old
has
grandpa
used for many, many
platform.
years.
Yeah. I have like the lowest account. It's like $17 a month. So just know too that podcasting costs money because you need somebody to host all your files. Don't host them yourself. That gets very problematic very fast. Trust me, I know. Ask me about the time where this side podcast I had broke my business website because they were on the same hosting. Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, like when I started, podcast.co wasn't a thing. And like now there's, Anchor and podcast.co.
Podbean. There's so many now.
So many things. Yeah. Just Google podcasting and you'll come up with a bunch of different things. And they all have their own pros and cons and whatever. But again, find what works for you, what feels like not intimidating that you can get into, that you can stick with, and then just go with that.
Absolutely. But yeah, so, and then once it's up, so when you first launch them, I know Alex, one of the ideas that you had and you've kind of stuck with is that you should have a few episodes to kind of preload. So if you can kind of put up a few, because people are going to want to listen to a bunch of your stuff. Right? But if you don't worry about it. With Skinfessional, I was like, I just want to start, and I just threw one up, and I was like, we're just going to do them weekly, and they'll just come out, and that's just how it's going to be. So,
I mean,
once again, any way that gets it done. Just push play.
Yeah. So true. I mean, like Nike's made $1 billion saying just do it for a reason. Okay. Just do it.
100% true. 100% true. And give yourself space and grace to understand that your process will grow. It'll morph. It'll change. When you started the Body Nerd show, did it look exactly as it looks now?
No. I mean, like the general skeleton is similar, but like as I got more comfortable too with just like the art of podcasting, like I was like accidentally, I was like, no, I was curious. I was playing an episode of mine today and I was just like, look at us, just like super casual and like friendly, and like that's the vibe I wanted. Like I want to be your friend even if we've never met, because I too have so many parasocial relationships. I want people to have that with me too.
And it's the first few are always going to be like, how do we do this? Do we have a format? How do we talk? And then it kind of melds and it meshes and you figure it out. So understand that I would say the first like 5 to 6 episodes, you're just figuring it out. Yeah, you're just figuring it out. And then beyond that, give it space to grow and do its thing. It'll find its way. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, definitely. If I were like, just go back and listen to my first episode. I scripted that. Okay. And I'll just leave it with that.
Yeah, we haven't scripted a darn thing in any of our stuff, but they're still radically different.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers, we've, once again, so we have show notes, Alex, and this is something Alex makes sure we do. We have show notes that we have to walk through. And I keep them on my phone right in front of me.
So we don't forget. So that's why I always ask, if you have questions about today's episode, if you have questions about starting your podcast or anything like that, you can send us a DM or tag us on Instagram and let us know. The show is at Skinfessional on Instagram. Sybil is at Skin Fitness Expert. I used that today to go to your link. And I am at Hala for Mala. Or you can leave us a voicemail. You can leave your question in an audio form.
Yeah, in the old school way. 818-473-5277.
Yeah, and you can email us if you want. It's also cool. We love that too. Our email address is skinfessionalpod@gmail.com. That's Skinfessional, like the show that you're listening to, like right now. Just look at your screen. POD@gmail.com.
All right, everyone. Well, hopefully you all go out, little beautiful people, and make beautiful podcasts. We'd like to hear about it. So with ours, though, until next week.
Keep your secrets to yourself.
Unless you're telling us.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
bye.